and welcome to part 2 of the lecture for chapter 16. Picking up where we left off, we're now going to talk about criteria for animal rights. In nature's food chain, plants feed on other plants, animals feed on both plants and other animals. In contrast, humans feed on plants and animals, but not other human beings. There are, however, certain circumstances when humans allow for the killing of other human beings. Focusing on the fact that humans have interests and attributes of soul and mind. Joel Feinberg argued that humans have rights, particularly they have an interest in not suffering pain. Animals have sense experiences and express sadness, happiness, and anger. Beings who have interests have claims to rights, and according to Joel Feinberg, animals clearly have interests, and so by extension, animals also clearly have rights. Now, some philosophers think that a right to moral treatment requires having a soul, but it is really hard to prove the existence of a soul. But animals have experiences and can express emotions, and that might be enough to get them over that line and join the camp that has interests and so has moral rights. With respect to reason, it has been determined that animals have the ability to reason, and some humans, so humans are obliged not to inflict pain and suffering on animals. Granted, animals do not have the same reasoning abilities that a lot of humans have. Some humans don't have the same reasoning ability as other human beings. Language experts, however, have run experiments with gorillas and have conducted functional MRIs with dogs. And the results of these experiments indicate the ability to understand language and emotion. Additionally, there are plenty of examples of humans who cannot reason fully or use language, but we still think that they should be accorded moral consideration. Now, there are various ways of dealing with animal rights. Vegetarians are those who either eat only plants or those who occasionally eat some poultry and some fish. Vegans, however, are people who eat plants only and do not eat any animals or any animal products or food derived from animals, such as dairy products, honey, and eggs. Jainists eat fruit and nuts and vegetables only, and only after they have fallen off the tree. Jainists refuse to kill plants in order to eat the plant's food. An argument against vegetarianism is that the interests of plants and animals are not as important as the interests of humans. And so because we have more important interests, we should have superiority essentially over plants and animals. The sentientism view argues that animals have mental states akin to humans, so they are deserving of rights. This ignores, however, the livingness, if you will, of non-human animals and does not consider the moral impact of, for example, forest deforestation. The holism view argues that every living thing is deserving of respect because humans, animals, and plants are all part of this greater natural world. Critics of this view argue that there is a blurring of important distinctions between types of living things. Taking on the issue of the use of animals for food. Is it moral to kill animals and use them for human consumption? Well, our forebears certainly did, but they had a particular way of raising animals. Our ancestors hunted animals for food and for clothing. Civilization led to the domestication of a number of animals. And there's this free-range system of raising animals and also various systems of slaughtering animals. With respect to ways of raising animals for food, they're usually these ways are usually split into two major categories. There's factory farming, which creates more meat and a greater meat production. And then you also have the free range category, which creates less meat, but creates the meat in a more humane way. The vegetarian position is opposed to both factory farming and free range because the vegetarian argument is as follows. It's against factory farming because factory farming is immoral. And why is the factory farming system immoral? Well, the vegetarian argument is going to say that using animals as a means to human ends without any showing of kindness is immoral. And also raising animals in closed pens and subjecting them to cramped quarters and the need for antibiotics. And so a vegetarian might be more friendly to a free-range system, although they're still going to see that we don't need that meat, whether it's raised humanely or not. The carnivore position, whichever method delivers the best quality meat. That's what the carnivore is going to say. The meat-eating position is a modern approach. It's an efficient way of producing the best quality meat. Animals are for human use. They have no intrinsic value, and their suffering doesn't have any moral meaning because they're not human. The moderate position basically condones using animals as food, except when it's done by clearly cruel methods, aka factory farming. So the synopsis here is that they condone eating animals, but criticize the factory farming method. And so the moderate position insists on a free-range method of raising animals, painless slaughter, and the idea that the eating of meat is not immoral, but cruelty in the raising and killing of animals is where the immorality comes in and makes meat eating problematic. Now, looking at the use of animals for experimentation. We use animals for both scientific and medical purposes. Arguments against using animals for experimentation basically go as follows. It's not justified to make an animal suffer for human benefit. It's immoral. Animals are thinking and feeling just like humans. Just because they can't tell us that they feel pain doesn't mean they're not feeling it. It's immoral to put animals through unnecessary suffering. And this essentially equates to torturing kind of a thinking, feeling being. So there's no moral value in these experiments, and there are other means of experiments that can be used instead. The moderate position here is not opposed to experiments, but argues that they must be absolutely necessary. So they're not against using animals, but they insist on certain safeguards, including the idea that animals should not be used to just satisfy our curiosity. And the efforts, or we should make efforts to keep animals out of pain when we use them for experiments. And they should be treated with some amount of respect in the same way that we are required to treat other human beings with respect. On the issue of killing animals for sport, this is certainly an ancient activity and a tradition, and it also goes to this desire for animal meat and other body parts. The argument that killing animals for sport should not be allowed basically says that it is an ancient activity. It's no longer required. We all have cell phones, right? We don't need to entertain ourselves by hunting and killing animals. The animal population will control itself. So we don't need to hunt in order to control animal populations. And the need for wild game and body parts, we have developed technology to create synthetic and man-made materials. So we don't need furs anymore, at least not furs that come off of what were formerly living animals. The moderate position here says that killing for sport should be allowed on a limited basis based on the age, sex, and type of the animal, but also that the hunt must be fair. So you can't pen in an animal and then just shoot it. You actually, it has to be kind of a fair fight. Endangered animals should be protected, and we should set certain hunting seasons and controls. Also, the moderate position would say that there's no reason to kill a wild animal for meat, since we have other ways of obtaining meat, and that we should not kill animals purely for body parts and skins. So we shouldn't catch a shark, chop off its fin, and then dump the rest of the shark into the ocean, essentially throw it away, right? The moderate position says we have to, we can catch a shark and chop off its fin, but then we also have to make use of the rest of that shark in order to meet with moral standards. The protection of endangered species. Now, nature has allowed some species to go extinct. It's just happened naturally without any influence or doing on the part of human beings. So why should we go out of our way to save species when some of them just might go extinct anyway, naturally? Basically, by allowing some species to go extinct, it shows an irreverence for a segment of life. And showing an irreverence for part of life is showing an irreverence for all of life. And that species are beautiful and should be preserved for everyone to enjoy. All animals contribute to a balance of nature, and we should preserve animals for future generations. Non-Western perspectives on environmental issues can be really drastically different than Western perspectives. In Asia, there are a plurality of ethical thought systems, including Roman Catholicism, Islam, Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, Neo-Confucianism, Hinduism, Jainism. And so we see kind of a grab bag of various perspectives. Now, ethical traditions in South Asia. Hinduism and Buddhism both stress kind of a oneness and an interconnectedness of the natural order. They both have this kind of wisdom, the idea that wisdom is holistic in nature and is manifest as knowledge and compassion. And that there's this right conduct, and that there is a kind of an idea of no self and a noble truth in suffering and a middle way. Ethical traditions of East Asia, the central goal of Chinese thought is to achieve balance and harmony. Taoism and Confucianism are examples of this, and then we see the yin and the yang kind of point counterpoint, if you will, this constructive cosmos. And the idea is that if Confucianism, for example, is that human beings are social, and that there are virtues that govern the relationships between humans and nature. So, to wrap up, pollution, depletion of species and their natural habitats, and global warming are just a few of the major problems facing the world today. There is an active dialogue regarding the most effective strategies for consuming, replacing, and protecting resources. This is needed in order to maintain a quality of life while also promoting an awareness of the interconnectedness of the world that we live in. All right, that's it for Chapter 16.